Reporting in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, Julia Janae, Court TV.
All right, thanks to Julia Janae for that report. Let me bring in my guests for this hour. Joining me, former criminal defense attorney Kirk Nurmi is with us, and forensic criminologist Dr. Laura Petler is here as well. Thank you both for joining me this evening. Truly appreciate it. And Kirk, I'll start with you. I want to talk about the death penalty. That's the big issue now, whether they're going to go for the death penalty. We're hearing from the family members, at least Kaylee Gonsalves' dad, Steve Gonsalves. He's certainly a fan of the death penalty. That's understandable. Where do you think that's going to go as far as this case is concerned?
Well, I think the prosecutors are really going to take a hard look at this. I think my quick look at Idaho law, obviously I didn't follow the case law a lot, but there's about 4 aggravating factors that I think the prosecutor could use. The multiple deaths being one of them, and they could very well go for the death penalty based on those 4 aggravating factors and potentially 5. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to listen to the family's input. What does the family want? And think about what this is really going to entail, because you know, when we talk about the death penalty, small county, that increases the likelihood of a change of venue. So there's a lot of things prosecutors are going to work out. And if the defense attorney as well is going to have some input to try to keep their client off death row, and that can also become kind of a bargaining chip to settle this case perhaps. So I know from the defense perspective, if I was his attorney, I'd be collecting as much psychological data as I could, as well as evidence in the case, with that idea, with that potential in mind, with hoping to argue for the prosecutors not to seek the death penalty.
Fair enough. And Dr. Petler, at the end of the day, it's not surprising that the parent or the parents of the victims in this case would be wanting to see a death penalty in this case. Talk to me a little bit about what that reaction to this is. Now, we've seen plenty of cases here on Court TV, a recent one, where the families got together and said, you know what, we don't want the death penalty. That's not something we want or believe in. But more often than not, you see the victims' families wanting the worst punishment, which is part of the reason we don't give them the ability to sit in judgment of these folks. But at the end of the day, talk to me about the mindset of a victim's family member or friends and what they're thinking about justice and punishment.
I think that, Michael, it's a very personal decision, and it's a very personal opinion that each family member would have pursuant to how they feel the person who is responsible for the deaths of their loved ones is punished. I've seen it go every single which way. In my career, we've had families that wanted to seek the death penalty against their accused the defendant, and then we have had other families who, like you mentioned, they don't want to do that at all. Their mindset is justice related, but you know, there are a lot of people who are very sympathetic and actually forgive the other family and the person who's done this to their loved one. So I've seen it all over the board in my years. So the mindset is a very personal decision and choice.
Kirk, I want you to clarify something, because clearly, you know, there's a collaboration that goes on. Victims' rights has been a big thing over the last few years, 10 or 12 years or so in the criminal justice system, and I consider that a very good thing. But remind our viewers, the family members, while they have a say, and while many states have codified the fact that they should be consulted, they can't determine, they're not the ones that determine how the prosecutors go in the case regarding punishment.
No, I mean, not charging or punishment, exactly. So they can put their input, and as Laura accurately said, I think there could be conflicts within each family, the different family members. We have 4, unfortunately, we have 4 victims' families here. There could be a different interplay between those families. So the prosecutors are just going to have to consider that, listen to them, and again, part of that decision in terms of the likelihood to get death penalty, what is this going to cost? The change of venue, all those things are going to be an important factor when the prosecutor decides to make that decision. I'm sure Idaho law has a certain amount of days which a death notice might be filed. Sometimes the defense can waive that and extend that to try to convince the prosecutor reasons not to. So the prosecutor is really going to be dealing with a lot of different factors here when they decide if or if not to seek the death penalty.
Dr. Petler, I want to dig into your experience and your knowledge. When we all got this document this probable cause affidavit. You know, so many things in there jumped out at us as lawyers, as, you know, we talked to various people. I want to play some sound here from Stephen Gonsalves, and he's talking about how he interpreted it, that this, and what he felt like this defendant did in this case, and then I want to discuss it with you. Let's take a listen.
You read the affidavit and you just find out that nobody understands exactly why, but he was stalking them, he was hunting them, he was just a person looking for an opportunity, and it just happened to be in that house. And that's hard to take. It's very hard to take. And, you know, I've said this before, where I thought maybe I should have put her in some gun safety courses, have done something, but she had her phone right next to her and she couldn't call 911. So these were just girls that went to sleep that night, and a coward, you know, a hunter that went out and he picked his little opponent that was girls, and that's probably why the house was targeted. It was because there was just girls there.
Yeah, I just find that incredibly heartbreaking, because as a father, you know, he's thinking about what could he have done? Could he have gotten her gunless, something to help her? But I want to get your thoughts on how he characterized what he was reading in that document, that he hunted them and he stalked them. What jumped out at you from this document in terms of his actions leading up to this crime?
To me, he's talking about, you know, very animalistic behaviors, where there's a person who is literally hunting other people for the purpose of harm. And there are stalking experts everywhere, and stalking is very well known to be what they call and refer to as murder in slow motion. Many times we see this very often in domestic violence. We see it very often in other types of crimes where stalking is involved. But it can lead to violence, and it always escalates unless the stalker is stopped. And in this case, the stalker was not stopped, and he went on to kill. So for me, Kaylee's dad is talking about hunting behaviors where he's like equating the defendant to, you know, kind of a predator-prey type relationship, which it can lead to that, Michael. It can be that way sometimes in these cases where stalking is involved, and then it eventually leads to a violent crime all the way to murder.
Especially this type of crime, where the type of weapon used evokes hunting, right? It was a kind of a hunting type knife. All right, Dr. Petler, Kirk Nurmi, stand by, because folks, we do have some breaking news in the Doomsday Couple case. It is coming into our newsroom now that Chad Daybell's attorneys have filed motions to for the court to allow him to speak with Lori. And the supposition is that they want to have discussions about a possible settlement or a plea in the case. Now, of course, that would involve attorneys. That would involve the two of them talking as well. As you know, right now, both of them are facing the death penalty in Idaho for conspiracy to commit murder charges and actual murder charges. Just recently, Lori Vallow's attorneys filed a motion seeking to have her disqualified from the death penalty, saying that there's no direct evidence that she had intent to kill anyone. The judge has not ruled on that, but right now we know that Chad Daybell's attorneys are asking the court to allow the two of them to meet to discuss possible settlements or pleas in this case. Again, Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell seeking to meet. So again, we're going to follow this one. This is big, folks. So we're going to continue to follow it and let you know what comes of that. All right, coming up next, though, here, there was a surviving witness in the home the night of the killings out in Idaho. She saw a man in black clothing walking down the hall toward her and heard crying upstairs. Then later in our Talkback segment, we want to know what you think about this case. Find us on social media, leave your comment, and we're going to share some of your comments later on in the show. Keep it right here on Quick TV.